What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a leg day. I want you to stay tuned to the end of the video. In this video, you're going to find out why your legs are not growing the way you want them to grow. I'm going to be covering form, techniques, the way I structure my training sessions. You ain't seen a leg day like this before. Stay tuned to the end. First and foremost, I start with a warm-up. I start by moving the joints that I'm going to be using throughout my session. So that'll go from my ankles, my knees, and my hips. Those are my primary moving joints through my leg sessions. Right now, I'm just firing up my hip flexors, key muscle in my squat patterns and my hip movement patterns. So I want to make sure they're fired up and ready to go. Now doing a 90-90 mobility routine. This again is to open up my hips. As you guys know, I like to spend my time with my warm-up. Not only does it get me mobile and ready for my lifts, it also gets me in the headspace, ready for my session. Again here, I'm just prepping my knees and I'm stretching out my calves. The first movement of the day was an adduction machine. This is not necessarily one of my main lifts. This is just for more prep work and just to get my adductors fired up and ready for my movements. Not only that, I want to get them prepped and ready, I want to make sure my adductors are nice and strong because they play a key role in hip stability. This is when the fun starts. The way I structured this is that I normally like to start with a hamstring movement because this is going to help with stability when I go into my big quad movement. On this, the main focus here is that you do not want your hips to be coming off the pad. So a lot of the time when people are doing hamstring curls, the hips like to shift up when the challenge is happening. Setting yourself up on a hamstring curl, you want to make sure your knees are in line with the axis of rotation, which is just the pivot point. You want to make sure you're nice and fastened in. Want to make sure you're nice and stable in the machine. I like to do this by locking down my lats, so elevating and then put my shoulders to my pockets, filling my lungs up, and as I initiate the movement, I have to drive my hips into the pad. As the challenge gets harder towards the top of the machine, I don't like to force the rep and let my hips shift up. If this happens, that means I take tension off the hamstring. So what I often like to do is I play around in whatever range I have available to make sure I hit complete failure. Next movement, we went on to a pendulum. This is a rough movement, I will not lie to you. So this is my big lift for today. With my quads, I like to make sure I get a big lift, and that's a low rep range, so anywhere between 5 to 6, maybe 8, but 8 is a bit on the higher end. My working weight here, I wanted to get to 100 for about 5 reps. So what I'm doing is I'll just pick myself up. So I start with 60 as a feeler set, a few reps in the tank just to feel the weight, find my feet placement. Then I go to 80 kilos. This is a working set. However, I'm leaving a few reps in reserve just to conserve some energy for my last set of 100 kilos. The main thing for the pendulum is just making sure you're controlling the weight. Pendulum can be quite daunting, but you gotta be brave, you gotta have composure. If you want to make the most out of this exercise, you want to get the most range, you ideally want to have your calf and your hamstring touching. As you're coming down, you brace nice and tight so that spine is nice and safe, and as you come down, push your hips back into the pad, and as you push into the floor, you drive your hips back. The hardest part of this movement is the middle phase. Once you get out of the middle phase, you're in a home run. Seated hamstring curl. Again, on this movement, you want to make sure your knees are in line with the axis of rotation here. Similar to the lying hamstring curl, the hamstring muscle is a biarticulate muscle, meaning it crosses two joints. If you want to get the most out of the hamstring, only one joint should be moving. In this case, the knee joint is the only moving joint. A lot of the time you see people doing seated hamstring curl. As the movement gets challenging, their hips come off the pad. It works, however, if you want to really isolate the hamstring, you want to push yourself into the pad, drive your hips back, and pull your heels towards your glutes. As the set gets more challenging, you're going to run out of range, but I'd rather you run out of range and keep your hips locked and work with what range you have available than your hips flying off the pad. My next movement of the day was a leg extension. Make sure your knees are in line with the axis of rotation. You want to make sure you pull yourself in nice and tight. The only moving joint is the knee joint. As you extend your leg, the intention should be to imagine someone is pulling your feet forward. Rather than flicking out up to the ceiling, you want to really shorten the quad by intentionally imagine someone's pulling your ankles away from you as you're extending your knees. Make sure you get your quad fully shortened at the top. Last but not least, walking lunges. I use this exercise as a finisher. At this point, my quads are cooked. So as you can see, my balance is all over the place. In an ideal world, I would love to use the dumbbells just to give me a bit more range at the bottom. Make sure your strides are consistent, pulling the negative as best you can. If you really want to challenge yourself, avoid any rest at the top and go one leg straight into the other.